So we're going to do just a rough cut to cut this part off so there's less in the way to deal with. So that's just what we're doing right now.
Very little cleanup, very little. Basically just where I freehanded. So I was going to make a template for this. I was going to make, take a piece of plate steel that would extend this way and this way, weld it on either side, and then have a plate that would come down with this profile on it, and I could use it on every piece. But I thought, you know, this isn't that intricate of a cut. So I just found where I wanted to splice it, took my center, and I went 5 inches to either end here, and then I went 5 inches for my 45-degree angle. Kept it very simple, and it worked out okay. It's very deceiving looking. It looks like this bottom of the leg is shorter, but it's because you're seeing this part of the roll and you're not seeing that part of the roll down there because the frame's actually down here. But it's very deceiving. So I figured if I did my job, if I did this halfway decent, this is the original cut from this side. If I did a decent job, then this thing should fit over here pretty close. And if it does, and I think we can duplicate that. As you can see, it fits nice. We should be able to duplicate that on our donor frame pretty easy. I mean, I probably could trace that if I wanted to, but the layout is pretty simple. I'm not really concerned. We've got the frame in the shop. Let it dry overnight because it was covered in snow. So we have to prep it and get it ready. We got to remove things like this. We need to take this apart, replace it with another cross member temporarily just to check the frame because we're kind of leaning in here and it's kinked in. I got to make sure this frame is actually usable. And I need to cut off these extensions that they welded on here. I really wish we didn't have to because I need this extra length, but we can't have this rust jacking here, so it's going to have to come off. After that, once we deem that both frame rails are indeed parallel and square and not racked, then we will move forward with cutting this splice. It's one of the most valuable tools I have when I do frame work. I want to check this frame, make sure it's okay, so it gives me a straight line. We're stepped off the frame here, spaced 5/8 of an inch. Same thing at this end, and I can go through and I can measure to the inside of that line and be 5/8 all the way down until we hit the spot where it's bent. And now we're at 1 1/8 inches. Right in here, it goes 1 1/8 inches and it pulls out. The string don't lie. This is a frame I've been hanging on to for a project I've got, and I've got all the parts to do it with, or most of. And I've been hanging on to this because it's 26 foot long and I need that length. And this is the frame that would work perfect for that Peterbilt, but then I have to give up my frame and then I have to go find it again. I really don't want to do that because it's very frustrating. Every frame he's finding that he wants to use is, you know, questionable at best. And I just, you know, it's one thing or another. I'm either going to give up the time in my shop where my shop's being tied up by that truck, or I sacrifice and use this frame and then I can move on to my own stuff. It's just aggravating. So there's 2 truck frames that I've checked over and we can't use them they're not right, they're not straight, they got thin spots, you know, there's issues. So I went and looked at another one that the owner located that he wanted me to use, and I couldn't use it. It was in bad shape. It had an extension welded onto it. It had torch cut holes in it. I'm just not using it. So he just found another one and he wants me to go look at it. And if this isn't the one, if it's not good enough to use, we're done here. We're getting brand new frame rails. I'm not messing around. I've spent $300 in diesel fuel looking at frames, picking up frames, all this nonsense, and I've wasted now over a week. It's been 10 days since I told him I needed a frame. Meanwhile, it's just sitting in my shop, so hopefully, fingers crossed, this one works. If not, I'm getting new frame rails. Well, this will work. It's got a good thickness, no rust jacking, no crustiness going on. Man, they cut everything with a torch. They just love a torch. Even the places where there is some little pieces of rust, it's not even through anything. That sucks. They're less than graceful there. Less than graceful there. Good thing is I don't think I need out this far. I think I can cut it in there. This is a whole entire truck, front to back. It was an International. If you don't know, International stamps their serial numbers right here. This is where the front shock is for the front axle and the cradle for the engine. They stamp their serial number right there. Yeah, looks pretty good. Let's get it unloaded. So I thought before I bring the frame in, I'd throw a string line on it, spaced it off 5/8 of an inch at each end, and I come through and measure it. And right in this area, it gets really bad bowed this way. 5/8 of an inch up there. Here we're 1 5/16 inches going that way, so it's got a good bend in it that way. I don't know if you can see this in the camera or not. Let's see if I can show you. You're obviously not gonna be able to see the string, but maybe you can see the frame, how it's bent. Such a load of crap. And I know what it's from. I see marks on the frame down here where they picked it up with a chain. Where did I find them? Scratches. Yeah, here we go. Where they picked it up with a chain, and they picked it up this way, so it was standing like this, and tweaked the frame. The frame shop says they can pull that out, but I don't know. I have to weld it together, and I have to cut it right here, which is right in where the biggest belly of the frame is. I don't want to pull them on my weld. And there's not enough room for me to manipulate this where I can get that cut in a different place, because the farther I come forward, we got more holes. Well, I don't want to do it with as many holes as here. I'd rather do it back here where there aren't as many holes. See how it's much easier out here. I'm just so tired of working with junk. I'm just tired of screwing around. This is just costing me a pile of time. Ain't costing him anything, you know. He just keeps messing around with this junk. I don't mind reusing frame, I certainly don't, but it has to be reusable, and I'm just tired of messing with this crap. So after several failed attempts, I've decided to take one of my trucks apart and use the frame off of it. It's exactly the right width, it's exactly the right height, it's thicker than what we have, so my liner works well with it. It's in pretty good shape. It's got a little paint peeling here, you know, a little rust under the powder coating or whatever that is, but it's not bad. It's definitely usable once we get all this crud off here, which is just paint. You'll see what decent frame it really is, but this is what we're going to use. So we need to get it loaded up on the rollback. We've taken the cab off and the hood, make it lighter, and now we're just gonna run it up on.
It's gonna be a tight fit.
We knew this was going to be very, very close. We measured it. I've got just a wee bit more, but we're going to make it. We'll be all right.
Okay. We have one chain pulling forward, one pulling back, the one back here, and the winch in the front, so I think we're good.
They're definitely tail heavy. I would like to have used the wrecker, but where it was, there's just no way I could get the wrecker in and out of there, so this will just have to do. We'll take the back roads and be slow and easy. Man, it is so nice to have the window down after it's been so cold the last few days. I think it's like 40 something today. I'm using my Bluetooth controls here. It works off my mind. I just, you know, let it keep going until I'm ready to stop it. Has nothing to do with the J hooks that I have hanging on the lever for the winch. That has nothing to do with it. That's just a hanger. As you can see, the bow that was in my bed came back out. It flexed and it came back to where it's supposed to be. Didn't hurt it at all. I don't think I do that on a regular basis, but you know, short distance like we went, I don't think it's really a big deal. All right, that was uneventful. Went very well. As you can see, it's just a little The frame's in good shape. It's got a little bit of rust between the frame and the steel and the actual paint itself. It'll peel off and clean up real nice. So what we need to do is we're cutting it way up in here. You can see how nice that frame is in that area there as well. So what that means is the after treatment has to come off. And yes, it was a late model truck we took apart. It was a run and driving truck with a 6.7 Cummins and a 7-speed manual transmission. But many times they're just worth more in pieces than they are whole. That's just how it works. So when you get the drive shaft out, after treatment out, rear end's got to come off, all this stuff. Both air tanks have to come off. Fuel tank's got to come off, battery box. We're going to cut it up in here. We're going to make a couple stands, and then we'll put this off to the side and use it for yet another project, because this is a good running motor and transmission. I don't recall the miles on it. I think it was high 200s if I remember right, and I could be wrong, but I'd have to check the paperwork. But regardless, that's what we need to do. We're going to use this. I'm not giving this frame up. You know, in order to get this frame for this, you know, I have to take a truck apart. So I'm not doing that for free. This has to be paid for. So he'll owe me for that. But anyways, let's get it apart. Oh, a lot of guys are going to say, why don't we just put his cab and hood and motor and transmission on here since we're so far in? You could if this frame was longer. We need 34 feet. We don't have that. I'm cutting way up into here because that's what I need. That wouldn't leave enough room for everything else. So just to answer that question, let's get it apart. All right, we're all stripped down. All the drive shafts are out, the carrier bearings, all the air lines, the wiring, the air tanks, the fuel tank brackets, the battery box and its brackets. Everything is off. And what's really cool about it is we're going to use that battery box for another truck. We'll use this fuel tank for another truck. These air tanks will probably leave with this. So I've taken a putty knife. I went down through the frame and scraped it and made sure that, you know, it's as good as I think it is, and it is. So then what I did is I found reference points and I marked both sides, and then we checked for square. Make sure we're square, and took our string line and made sure we're straight, and we are. So the next thing we need to do is separate the two. So we're going to make stands that'll use these brackets here, come down and touch the ground. So that will support the front half, and then the back will stack up some cribbing back here, and we'll cut the two loose. I'll cut the bottom flange first, then I'll cut the top and connect the two. I've cut this measured out longer than I need. That way, if any of these holes end up in a part of my splice I don't like, because we're doing a 45, a flat, a 45. If it ends up anywhere I don't like it, I want to be able to manipulate that splice forward and back. So that'll be our next thing. I've got the motor sealed back up, the exhaust, the after treatment's off and put aside. We've sealed the downpipe off. I need to seal the turbo again. We took the air intake off when we had it on the truck because it was loose. I didn't want it to blow off. So we'll get that taken care of. Now we got to make some legs.
Okay, so here's the stands or legs that we made out of scrap metal. They're made out of the old liner.
Yeah, these were where the differential was, and the track bar would push against this. I didn't straighten them up or nothing. I mean, I literally just welded them in there crooked because it doesn't matter. I know it's hard to believe, but look at their speed here.
Yeah, and then I'm sure he explained they're just going to hold this front part up after we cut it off.
This is the other side.
So he's cutting the frame now. Got his stands up, and we're using his handy dandy saw horses or whatever you want to call it that he made to hold it up. And he's using his new HPT MICROCUT plasma cutter. I mean, it honestly works so much better than the Typhophone. He's just doing this freehand because it doesn't really matter.
after it gets out of here.
I think we're just setting this out of the way, and then we're gonna load this up and take it back to the other property where it came from. What?
Get your hands out of there.
You weren't up to there yet. That's why I have my hand there.
Well, we're almost back to where we started from in the beginning of this video. So next step for us is going to be to get the rear differential suspension all unbolted from this frame, the shocks and everything. Then we'll take a skid steer, lift it up, bring my other stand underneath it, and pull that rear end out. Well, we got the rear axle out from underneath it, and we got it sitting on our sawhorses, and we're starting to clean the frame up. So I think we'll probably stop here. On the next part, we'll lay out the frame. We're going to cut it with a plasma cutter, and then start fitting it to the truck, and we're going to cut that with the HTP MICROCUT 45 DV. That's how I'm going to cut that steel to make my splice. Then we'll grind it and finesse it and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys have enjoyed all the grief I've gone through to actually get a good frame. And isn't it ironic that I end up taking apart one of my trucks to actually do it? Unfortunate, but it has to get done so we can move on. But hope you guys enjoyed. We'll catch you on the next one.